Welcome to ZBrush Sculpt demonstration at Full Sail University. My name is Valerie Berrios, and I will be your character artist for today. I'm an associate course director at the Game Art Fine Art department. So if you guys have any questions ever, always make sure to let me know. I'm always available here for you guys. Today's theme is aliens from the movie franchise Aliens, which if you guys have not seen, they are all great. I also want to make sure to congratulate and just say great work to all the previous alumni and current alumni working on the movies. It has been such, I would say, beautiful transformations from the 90s to now. So congrats you guys, all the alumni. Keep doing great work and do the best you can always. So for me today, we're going to be talking, like I said, we're going to be doing an alien sculpt. Before we continue, let's go to a little bit about myself. Let's talk about myself today a little bit. I'm an associate course director at Full Sail University. My main goal, or just my I would say my passion, is character arts. I've been doing this for I keep missing track of time, but let's say 5+ years. Character art is, like I said, my passion, is the love of my life. ZBrush, I always say it's the love of my life. So if you guys have any questions ever on that, let me know. Here's some of my work that I've been doing through the years. We have been doing actually a couple years now of this demonstration demo. On Halloween, we have been going through the first year, which was the demon. Second, the Black Lagoon monster. It's a fan favorite. It was really scary and really nice to kind of just paint over. We did Last of Us, creepy little girl. I love that one. And we also did Krampus. To be honest, that was my favorite one. I love everything that's super dark and creepy, and I love the movies also. So I thought it was a really, really, really good year too. But like I said, we have been going through all these years doing those sculpts. This year, no different. It's going to be just having fun. If you guys have questions throughout the stream, just let me know. I'm here. This year, though, I did a little bit of, I would say, pre-work. The reasoning behind this, and as you can see, guys, here, I started a blockout of the alien. The reasoning behind this is because I wanted to make sure that we go a little bit more past on the detail. I want to go into that detail, kind of get those pores in there, those fine lines, right? Years before, we had a point where we kind of stopped there, right? Because we may run out of time and things like that. We have a certain specific time for this. But this year I was like, okay, I'm going to make this first, have a little 1 hour, 2 hour block out, record it for you guys. If at any point you have questions with the block out, let me know. If not, you can always check back my past streams, because remember, I gave a lot of tips on how to start a block out, how I start my block out, how I would recommend you start it, and then just tips and tricks here and there. So from today, what we're going to be doing is just pass that block out, starting to get into, hey, maybe certain shapes that I'm not a fan of, that I just looked and I'm like, maybe I need to fix this, which it happens throughout your art journey, to be honest. It always happens. You're like, maybe I don't like how this looks. Let me change this really quick. Don't take too much time on it. But here, what I am showing you guys is how I did my hands. There is a hand model, like parts, IMN parts in ZBrush that you can always use. And I just used it to get the overall shape, but I change it entirely. I'm not a fan of just putting IMN brushes in there and then just leaving them like that. I like to just get the overall volume of it and then just change it all the way. From here, hands took me a little bit of time. Hands are one of the hardest things to do as a character artist, I would say. Hands, ears, yeah, that's it. For me, at least, hands and ears are one of the things that have been always a challenge just to get right. And for me, because sometimes I am a perfectionist, which is very, very, I would say annoying sometimes and not the most helpful. I'm like, I want to get those hands like how I want them to. I want them to look creepy. I want them to look very, very like, oh, you know, I could like feel the creepiness on them. So we're gonna be working on that today a little bit more. I got some references online about hands that how I would like it to look, and we can just work on them a little bit further. Obviously, we don't have eyes, right? Eyes are also a little bit harder to get, or that I see students struggle with a little bit. So at least we don't have to deal with eyes today. But hands and ears are one thing that I recommend you guys when you're getting into character art to just practice, practice, practice. A lot of future employers will be looking at your sculpts, and they're going to be, the first thing, looking at your ears and looking at your hands. How are they handling those complex shapes? So let's get started. Actually, here, let me say before we continue, I did bend the hands a little bit more. I added more details in the back because we were missing some kind of very important details of the silhouette shape of the alien that I wanted to kind of push out a little bit more. To be honest, why I thought about this concept, I was looking online. There's so many aliens online that have been done. And I'm like, I want to do something similar, but not so separate, not the same, you know. You don't want to be, when you choose concepts, you want to make sure that it pops out as much as you can, right? You don't want to be another one of the mountain of similar sculpts. So for this one, to be honest, I was just like, I want to have fun. I want to make it look creepy. Definitely I'm going to add some saliva thing dripping around because I love doing that. And I want to have it on my desk. I was like, that is my thoughts. I'm like, I want to have this on my desk. So if that gets me really excited, really pumped to kind of sculpt this, put it on my desk, 3D print it, have fun with it. Maybe if I do the hands a certain way, I can put my pen in there, or I can put my rings in there, you know, just have fun with it and have it on my desk. But yeah, so if you guys have any questions regarding anything pre-done from this point that I'm here right now, you let me know, and we can always, I can always go back a little bit and be like, hey, this is how I did it, moving along, things like that. But yeah, let's jump into ZBrush to see what we have here today. So, let me see if I can actually, before you guys, there you go. Before we start, things I always do for myself, try it for yourself, see if you like it. Anything that I always recommend, try it for yourself, see if you like it, add it to your pipeline. I always recommend that. When you're starting to learn from everyone. And then see what it works for you from what you learn from them. That's how I kind of created my pipeline. And, you know, nice networking. You always want to network with other people. You always want to also be supportive in the art community, right? I always like to say be supportive to your other fellow artists. So when we start here in ZBrush, things I like to do, we're not going to go with red wax. We're going to go with, I preferably like blend. And we're going to be changing the back gradient. Not a fan of, I just leave it gray. So I go to document and then range all the way to the back. And then that's good. That's a little bit more, hey, I can be doing this for like 8 hours, right? Plus for my eyes. I have seen students, and I always mention it because it's just so funny to me, utilizing neon green. Cool if you're gonna be there an hour or two. I don't recommend it, but if you're doing like neon green and then you're like there for 8+ hours, that's gonna be affecting a little bit of your eyesight. You know, if you start getting headaches, getting dizzy, you know what it is. So I always recommend very light colors. I've seen pinks, I've seen light blues. That works for me. But for now, gray is the way to go for me. So how you guys saw, we already have a base. I wouldn't say super block out because I kind of just, once I go into the zone, I kind of get a little bit just in the zone. So I went a little bit ahead and created some shapes that I wanted to see, so you guys at least start seeing what we're doing, right? I have my handy dandy Pure Ref over here. You guys don't know about it. Greatest thing I've discovered in the past years, just because I can go to Google, click and drag all my images, put them in there, call it a day. You can make notes, and just for my organization like mind, I like everything organized. This is like the best thing. So we have a couple of concepts around here. This one here, right here, are my main ones because I saw it. I was like, oh, I want that, right? I can't buy it. I can't find it anywhere. I'm gonna make it. So actually, that made me more excited. So apart from the references, always make sure your references actually help you. You don't want to have references that are not doing anything, that don't have enough detail for you to, you know, kind of sculpt. So be aware of that. I do see a lot of students having references and they never use it. So why have them, right? Although I want to show you guys this because I was just going around the internet, and I love the internet, and I thought this was the most cute, hilarious thing. I was like, oh, I want to do it one day. So maybe I can just keep adding to the sculpt. But I was like, what? It's just a guitar. That's hilarious. So moving along from that, but I loved it. I have a couple of face huggers. Face huggers, I believe. Yes. So this is because my mind goes into a rabbit hole where I'm like, okay, I'm going to do alien. I'm going to do a base of a face hugger. And it goes everywhere. So I calmed it down with just grabbing some references, put them in there, and then being like, okay, this is something I'm going to do a little bit more in the future. But it's still there. So that's why they're there. In case you don't see. And then just a couple of things that I like to, this is the evolution of it, depending on the movies, depending on the lore and things like that. So this just for me, it just keeps the juices flowing. So for this, like I said, hands, I love creating nice hands. So I got some references of how I want my hands to look and some anatomy. If you're new to this, anatomy is going to be your best friend. Anatomy for Sculptors, one of my favorite books so far. It's simple, it explains to the point, and you understand it really, really easy. So that's why I have these in here, because I just love it. And every time, even though I've been doing this for like 7 years, I always have my references, I always have my anatomy in there. I don't want to be one of those people that are like, I don't know, I know how to do faces, and then out of nowhere it just doesn't look like a face. So I want to make sure that I always have concrete information at all times when I'm creating whatever sculpt I'm doing. So that helps me a lot in that. And also it's practice. It's good practice. It's good for you to practice. So from here, let's get started. There's a cool concept that I saw. Let me see if I can scroll here. There you go. Cool concept that I saw. I was like, oh, maybe I'm going to do that too. You see how my mind wanders. So from here, one thing that I want to do before I continue, because I like it a lot, is we're going to go to preferences and edit. And I'm going to do allow click to solo. This is really good because if you notice right now, I'm clicking and it's not soloing anything. It's not focusing on anything. But if I do preferences, edit, allow click to solo, and now I do that, it just focuses on that shape that I have currently selected on the subtool, there you go, menu. So I like this a lot because, one, it just doesn't show me everything. I can focus on something, give it detail, and then I can always go back and be like, oh, it's looking good or it's looking terrible. Let me change it. So this is really, really nice for me. It's also one of the cool things that I love about ZBrush. Apart from everything, of course. So when I created this, you guys will be able to see that I have a pre-done video, right? You might not be able to see the blockout phase because, to be honest, I was so in the zone 2 hours in and then ZBrush crashes. It happens. Cry a little bit in the corner, be like, one tear, and then we're good. Keep moving. Don't let it stop you. I've seen students be like, oh, I lost so much work. And they just want to like flip the table. Yes, but then come back, focus, refocus, continue. Don't let that, don't be spending 5 hours being mad at it, right? Maybe spend an hour. Eat something. I always say, if you're not feeling good, eat something. If you're feeling mad, eat something. Something that you like, of course. Don't be like, hey, I don't like liver, and then you're eating liver, right? So just make sure to just focus, get matured. It happens. This is technology. It's not the most predictable thing sometimes. So just let it go. Keep continue. If you have to start over, start over. I've been there. It's probably going to make you do it faster too. So, and good practice. So when we go to the sculpt, first things first. Oh, we got a question. something. I have to look to the side like question. So, question for facial expressions. How do you make them more realistic and develop better detail? To be honest, lots of reference. that's going to be the best thing. Lots of references of what kind of facial expression you want to do. Most of the time, that's left a lot for like blend shapes and things like that. It's a little bit more advanced where you just have a face and then you kind of just create different faces and blend them together. That's a little bit more advanced. But I would say when you're doing like a sculpt, generally like I'm doing here you see that I already have it already posed. It's not a pose or anything, which is normally the normal thing if you're going to animate and rig, etc. What you want to do is find a reference. If you can't find it, you got to make the reference. I was gonna take my hand today because I have very long hands, if you guys can see. So I was like, ooh, maybe I want to use my hands for the creepy hands. So I was like, hey, maybe I can find the reference. I'm gonna do the reference. So that's what I would say for facial expressions. Just find references. There's sites out there that actually have, and I'm blanking out of the name right now, but there's one that's really good that just does references for facials, like everything, and female, male. I think has like little like babies and animals too. I'm blanking out of the name. Apologies. But just find it out there, have the reference in hand, and then try your best to sculpt it. And even with the detail too, if you're doing pores, and just look for pore detail reference and things like that. If you're doing crow's feet, if you're doing any kind of wrinkles, look for those specific wrinkles that you want, and then try to emulate that. It doesn't have to be perfect. Like a lot of the references, you don't have to be on point with them. It's just for you to have the idea of, this is how I can start this. With your knowledge, it will automatically be like, okay, this is how I can continue it. Is it looking good? Is it looking bad? Kind of doing things like that. So that's what I would recommend for anything. Facial expressions, wrinkles, tertiary, primary, everything. It's going to be you kind of having the references there to support that. Hopefully that helps, or that answers the questions. So, going to the sculpt. This is what we're going to be kind of working on. Let me go back to these two. And I like that, yes, there's so many aliens out there. Like, look at this. I don't know who the artist was for this one, but this was amazing. I was like, wow. And we have the whole body. We have the one that you can kind of see through, the skulls and things like that. Which is mostly the main reference for me. But we only have one angle. I don't recommend doing only one angle when you're doing anything. I do it right now, or I'm doing it right now, because I'm like, I've been doing this for a while, so I'm like, I know how it would look from another view, if that makes sense. But I always recommend have the most views that you can find out there for whatever reference you're doing. I don't want to do this base, to be honest. This base, I was leaving it for the face hugger. I wanted to do a face hugger base. That's a little bit more in the future. But for this one, I'm going to leave it blank. And then we're just going to kind of just implement this into the body a little bit more. So I'm just gonna keep moving a few things that I just noticed that I'm not a fan of. And I don't want this to be too long, even though I feel like it's a little bit longer. But the reason behind that is if this is going to be in my desk um, in the future, I don't want it to be too long either. I don't want it to go like backwards or forwards or anything like that. I want to keep it centered as much as I can for what I want. And you got to think like this sometimes. You got to be like, okay, what is the goal of this sculpt? Is it practice? Is it because I want it on my desk? Or is it because I want to 3D print it? You know, maybe you're trying 3D printing, which is great. I love 3D printing. And then you got to do kind of the sculpting around that too, because there's certain details that you might need to push more for it to push or to show in the 3D print. So from here, I want to work a lot with, there you go. I want to work a lot with the mouth. I feel the mouth is still missing some key points that I want to do, especially anatomy wise. And I want to do a lot of like that drooling. I love the drooling. So I am sure that I have a reference around here, hopefully. So we're going to be doing that. And even this kind of like the anatomy kind of just breaking down a little bit more. I love that. So that is the goal, to kind of just start in this one. So there's a piece here that I wasn't a fan of, which is this triangular piece here. I was like, oh, is it necessary? Sure. Thankfully, this is something I'm doing for myself, so I don't have to be like, hey, it has to be there. So I chose not to have it there. But so when we start, and I'm going to look around really quick because I'm like, okay, what am I missing here? Cool. So we got this, and that. That sounds good. So what I want to do is give a little bit more love to the upper part of the head, because I feel like there's a lot of information here, guys. Like if you see this is like, and I try to look for the most simplistic kind of just, hey, I have the detail, but it's showing it's affecting the area, but it's not like super extremely detailed, just because it's not, I don't think it will be necessary for what I want when I 3D print it. So question, what's the best position to draw on screen? Any techniques? So in position, what do you mean? Like, what do you, do you mean like mouse? Are you utilizing a mouse? What do you mean? I would say as straight as you can. It's hard for me sometimes. My back actually is hurting right now. As straight as you can. And then that's it. Try not to hunch, because I tend to do this a lot. Try not to hunch. That's not the best for your posture. And yeah, I hope, let me know what you mean by position. I do have a tablet in my home, so I also have this position where it's like my tablet and I'm kind of just like hanging on it. It's comfortable for me. I'm still straight up and then kind of just like, if you're doing the just table tablet like I am right here, this is the one that I use. Hopefully that helps. But yeah, so when I am going to kind of just focus on the head, I am mostly going to focus on these tubing parts. I want to get the tubes in there. I want to make sure that they're working. There's a couple of ways you can do them. I don't want to, I like using tubes, like the curved tubes they're great. And I'm going to press B and C to kind of get the curved tubes. And I always forget the last letter, and also it changes sometimes. So I just look it up here in the menu. It's this one right here, where you can just create tubes from it. It's great. I love it. But there might be a combination where you want to, let me see how I explain this. So when you're starting from the beginning, the very bottom, you want to always make sure you learn how to do things. So yeah, of course, there's tubes that look like this out there on the internet, that you can just click and drag and then call it a day. You're like, I'm done. That's good. I'm not saying that's bad. It's just if you're starting like really low and you're a beginner, you don't know anything, I would always suggest, hey, make sure you learn how to do things first before you start using already pre-done or done like parts or anything like that. So I do that always, to be honest. I don't tend to skip too many steps in my own personal work, because I want to make sure that I keep myself practicing and practicing. So that me doing this from the beginning like this, it keeps me like, oh, this is how I can do this. This is how I can do that. Instead of just having a tube that already has the detail, if that makes sense. I'm not saying it's bad. It's just there is certain areas that you should and you shouldn't do it, if that makes sense, in your career overall. I just leave it for my own work. So if I'm doing like actual company, I'm working on a company, of course I want to do my work the fastest that I can. But for my own work, I'm like, oh, I don't have a timeline for this. Let me just do it from the beginning, get my juices flowing, get how I do this, and then later on that's going to be really, really helpful. Trust me. So I'm going to do this little tube here, and before I get rid of the curve, I want to make sure that it's not super thick. I don't want it to be super thick from the beginning, but not too thin. So what I'm doing is I'm using the curve tube. As long as you have the curve on active, you can always adjust your size. So let's say like this, and then you click on it and it just edits the size. I am going to have it from there to there a little bit longer, so I can always like shove it in there if I need to, because I'm like, should I cut it? Sure. That's good. But I don't need to for it right now because it's not necessary to actually cut it. So from here, I'm going to just start moving this around, and it's fine if it's super low. You guys can probably see that little great resolution that we have, right? So it's okay if it's low. It doesn't have to be too high. I just need to get it looking like how we have it here as much as we can. These rings, I'm going to show you how I'm going to do them. You can always, one, sculpt it on the actual tube, or two, you're going to do what I'm going to do, which I'm just going to apply this a little bit in there and smooth it out by just holding shift. And there you go. And we have a closer to that. If I'm going to do these little, I don't like how that's like not bending. There you go. And then this one right here kind of just goes up a little bit, and I'm just gonna soften it. And you see how it just kind of blends in nicely. I didn't do that much, right? I didn't do too much onto that. So that's great that that worked out there. From here, I am going to then go into subtool menu, and I'm gonna go and hit append. And like I said, there's many ways you can do this. Like there's literally also the curve tool again, and you can go, it should be, there you go. So you see how it's going almost all the way around. Actually, I'm gonna go a little bit more here to this angle and see if you can see it. That means that it's going to wrap all the way around. I'm holding shift while using the curve brush. And that does that. It kind of goes all the way around. It's a little bit too big, so let's see if we can just minimize that. And way too big. There you go. So we can do that, and then the ends, I don't have a problem with them. I can just move them around inwards. You can do whatever, smooth them out. I don't have a problem with those. You can also snap them, whichever you need to. If it's too long, just like, that's fine. You can do this each time. That's an option. I'm just going to take a donut. I call it a donut, but it's a ring, but I call it a donut. So I'm gonna take one of those donuts, and where is it? Let me find you first. There you go. And then I'm just gonna utilize this as many times as I need to. I'm just gonna place it. I don't want it to look perfectly the same, so it's slightly going to have a little bit of asymmetry, which is something I wanted to touch up on too. So I'm going to slightly do that. And they're a little bit flat on the inside and outside. So I'm just going to adjust that. And the reason because I want to do this is I just like it. I like it this way. There's many ways to do things, but this is the one that's going to get me, at least for myself, the fastest way. Sure, they can be a little bit thinner. So if you want to adjust, and let me see if Inflate works on this. We're going to go to the formation menu, and we're going to go to Inflate Balloon. Yep. Oh, there you go. Oh, that's too much. So this is very finicky, so just be aware. There you go. There you go. Sure. I like that. This is a great menu. You have so many things you can edit here. I would say try them out and see how it looks with whatever you're sculpting. My favorite one though is Inflate and Inflate Balloon. It's just Inflate. It's just, I believe it's like from the pivot overall, and then Balloon is just actually the mesh just inflating up and down, however you want to adjust it. So sometimes the Inflate's a little bit finicky because of the pivot or size and things like that. I've had issues with that one, so I'm just using Balloon because it's my favorite one. So from here, many ways you can just kind of just, I'm holding control at this place at this moment, and I'm just pushing it to the side. There's new brushes in ZBrush. Actually, I think it was the latest update, or 2024 or 2025, that gives you the ability to just continue applying the same. I think it's like the last step. Because my tube is not the most perfectly, you see how it's like very, very taper here and thicker. So I'm going to have to adjust that myself. But if you wanted to do it very mechanically, not so imperfect like I'm doing it, you can definitely do that. But I like the imperfectness of some things. And this is also very relaxing for me. So this is just me like, going here, going here, going here. And just kind of applying the whole thing. You can also just do one piece and then just duplicate that piece. So let me see if I can, there you go. Which I tend to do a lot on that. I'm just like, I'm just going to do that and then kind of adjust. It doesn't have to be perfect. Or I'm not making it perfect. I do like that angle. I'm going to go first here and kind of do selection here. This is just menus of brushes that I like. So if I hit Control, Mass Lasso, it's my favorite one. And then Control Shift is my brush lasso. I love the lasso ones, as you can see. It's just gonna get me a lot of more flexibility on how I do things. So for example, if I just want to do this, and when I move this one down a little bit, it's a little bit too big, then I can just do that. And then same with this one. Invert that selection by holding Control and clicking on the canvas. And then doing that. And then same around. You can also do BMT. BMT is the move topological. So if I Shift F, I can see all my poly groups. And I actually want all of them to be different. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to auto group. So I'm just going to be able to move each one with topological instead of BMV, which is the move tool, which moves everything together. And I always like to mention that because it's such a good brush. If you're doing fingers, if you're doing anything that's like together, to move it, that's the best way. Like that's my favorite way. So I'm just going to kind of move it around and have them there. I don't need the inside, to be honest, and I actually like this cutting off a little bit, so I might actually push them in slightly more. So from here, do the same thing. I am going to try and see if I can just do that faster. Ooh, I don't like how that's cutting in there, so we need to fix that. Make sure you're looking at all your views, right? Don't just focus. Sometimes happens that you focus on one view and you're like, what is going on? Yeah, I actually like these. So if I don't like certain ones, I would just take them off. So I'm just gonna select them by holding Control Shift Alt, and I don't like those. I'm gonna keep these. Right now what that's doing, it's hiding them. So you can always Control Shift unhide or click and drag and it will just invert the selection. I don't need those in there, so I'm just going to geometry, modify topology, delete hidden. That way those are not there now. Make sure that anything that you delete on ZBrush, you're aware that you're doing it, one, and then that you're sure you're doing it, because once you delete things in ZBrush, it's gone forever, gone. You can try to Z back. Sometimes when you delete and hide and you Z back, it works and you're like, oh, it's there. But if you actually go to the delete button here, it might just not work. It probably gives you like a star, like an actual star shape, and you're like, what is this? And you're like, what? Yeah, it's just gone forever. So be aware that if you're gonna delete anything, make sure you're sure. Very, very sure. I don't tend to delete stuff except like delete hidden, just because I don't want to run into issues like that. And there you go. Then I don't like this. There you go. I'm just gonna push that. I actually like that they're kind of slightly coming out, but they should be a little bit more tighter in there. So I'm just gonna push them in manually. And again, there's many ways you can do this, faster ways, but for this one, I'm good with this. It's very relaxing to kind of just have these in there, and then maybe just an overall move of this. Oh, sorry, I always do the Windows button. I always hit it, like it's a very, very annoying thing there. In my keyboard at my home, I have the actual like, hey, you can't hit the Windows button. Like I have it off, so I'm like, oh, that's like the best thing ever, but I forgot about this one today. So put them in there, and I like those. That's nice. They could go a little bit smaller, so I'm just smoothing them out a little bit. There could definitely be more, but I don't want them to be too overwhelming for what I want. I want to make sure that when I go into my desk and I look at this, I'm like, okay, I can see the shapes more. So I don't want to have a lot of them close in a row. I want to have them spaced out. And this is just me thinking of, you know, like, hey, I have this. Oh, there you go. Z back. Control Z. This is how I would like to see it, and not perfect and slightly crooked, and it's just more personality, right? So from here, let's say that, sure, we got into a point and that's good. I am going to just duplicate it to the other side. When I mention symmetry, symmetry is very important in ZBrush. Like once you break symmetry, it's really difficult to kind of bring it back. I always say that because that's one of the things, the highlights of my career. Like always make sure that you have symmetry, Valerie. Until of course you go into a point that you break it. But in the sense of primary and secondary, and then you're just breaking everything up, at least for me, it has worked to have a lot of symmetry first. And then I'm like, okay, I'm going to break symmetry. I get into the point that I break symmetry and move along. But if, for example, I'm doing these hands and I had broken symmetry before, and I'm like, now I don't like that hand, then it's just extra work for me. Then I would have to cut it or duplicate it, or, you know. But if the symmetry wasn't perfect, I would probably have to cut it and kind of just put it on the other side, attach it, and things like that. It's just extra work for me instead of just doing it symmetrical. And then at the end, hey, I'm going to break symmetry. So I just pick one of them and move along with that one. So from here, I'm just going to adjust that a little bit more. A lot of these details are so like very fine that it will definitely take more than 2 hours, to be honest. Like this is just, art takes time, and give it its time. But you try your best. So from here, I'm going to go to the geometry tab. We're going to go modify topology. And I like doing mirror and weld. Mirror and weld is one of my favorite buttons in there. Like I said, I always keep the symmetry side to side, and then that's it. And we have it on both sides. I don't want it to be super like outwards like that, although I like it. It kind of looks like cool rings in there. But I will probably adjust that a little bit inwards more, just because I don't want it to be like too out like that. That's good. So from here, I'm gonna keep doing the tubes, and we're gonna go a little bit more on the face anatomy so we can start seeing that creepiness. I feel like the mouth is too tiny, like it's too like forward. So we might need to open some area here, kind of extend this a little bit more because of how it's rotated down. So we might need to adjust the face a little bit forward so it's not so like small. But I also don't want to go too forward. So it's thinking about it. Let's see how it goes. So from here, I'm gonna do a lot of the curved tubes because I want to fill that area a lot more. We can also, for this right here, all the muscle and tendons kind of going around the face. We can also do a brush for that. So from here, I'm just going to actually pop this out a little bit. Oh, there you go. And I feel like there's a lot of space here that we might need to blend in, because you see how my neck and the head is just looking like two different shapes. Very simple to kind of move around. So we're going to just, I like doing this where I'm just like, oh, I'm just going to push this shape into that. Doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to fill up the volume and space of it. So I'm just going to extend that, and from the back, kind of just like, if there's any questions so far, let me know. Hopefully that last question, I answered it. Wasn't sure what you mean by position, but if you can clarify it, that would be great. But I always recommend the styles that I have right here. This one, for beginners, is great. Traveling, great, the greatest thing. But if you can have your own actual tablet in your home, ooh, it just changes. It changes the everything. Even your like bodies. You're not hunching anymore. It's the greatest thing. So I'm just gonna push things around and. Oh, so follow up. Awesome. She meant the position of the pen or the tool you're using. Oh, okay. So the position of the pen or the tool you're using. Sorry, I'm like, I would say it's gonna be how comfortable you are with it, because it depends on, I would say try different ones and see how it works for you. Because I've never thought about it. You made me thought. I'm like, no, I gotta think about it. It's like things that you kind of just do automatic, if that makes sense. So I would say maybe try different ones and then see if that works for you personally. Oh, I go hit there that again. There you go. So from here, because I did that, going back to geometry, Dynamesh. I've been using Dynamesh. Sorry if I didn't mention it before. Blockout, secondary. This is going to be all Dynamesh. So from here, I'm going to just adjust that really quick. I'm just going to Dynamesh that by just control, click and drag. Make sure that that looks really polished because I actually have polish on. Polish is really good. Sorry, it's really good overall. If you want to have clean, nice, like edges and things like that. So if you guys see this like nice clean edge here, polish is really good for that. I've been using it a lot lately. I don't know if it's giving me a little bit more of a super stylized feel, which I do love. I do love that. So yeah, I like it. Try it out and let me know if that works for you. So I'm just going to push this down a little bit more because I feel like it's still too thin. But I don't want to lose the curve, but then I also have to move things around. These are things that are going through my mind right now. I'm like, oh, I got to do this. I got to do that. It happens. So I'm just going to push that in slightly more. And then I'm going to Dynamesh my neck and that head because I think they're separate right now. Really easy to tell. Definitely they're separate. So because I created the neck from a cylinder, I just like pushed it out around and that's it. That's why they're separate. I tend to do things very separate. I always mention to my students like, hey, make sure that you kind of realize what type of artist you are. Or in the sense of a pipeline. So what I mean by that is, do you add things to, is it easier for you to add things and then just like, let's say I think a sphere and I'm like, sphere, a cylinder, and I just like push things around. Or are you like pulling things out of a shape? So if you have a sphere and then you just pull, is that easier for you to kind of get the shapes faster? For me, I realized, I tried both. I realized that for me was the best was, I'm going to take a cylinder. I'm going to put it in there, kind of just extrude that. Move around. I'm going to just take shapes and pull them together. That was what my brain understood better. And I get the shapes faster and the overall feel of the sculpt faster. So just try out which one you like better. And that's going to be such an improvement on your sculpts and how fast you work. And I tend to work fast. Sometimes people are like, oh, you did that really fast. And I'm like, yes, it's just my brain got that really fast with just pushing shapes around. And that made me faster in sculpting. So from here, I'm just going to go take this two together. Select the first one and then merge down. It's going to all... Then that way I have to, again, go to Dynamesh, make sure it's on, and Dynamesh it. There you go. So now it's one thing, and actually we feel like we have the space to put, all the nice curves in there. If things are not looking like you have the space in them, make space for them. Don't just try to shove them in there like, oh, it doesn't look good. Everything's just like missing and blurring all together. Just make space for them. Something I like to do is I duplicate my model and I just make the changes and see if that looks good and kind of compare one and the other. And that looks good. So question, is there a technique on how to retopologize? Yes. After I do the neck, we're going to jump into that because we do need to get into a little bit more detail. It's just, like I said, the aliens, I was like, oh, this is going to be cool, fun, but they have so much detail in them. I was like, wow. So we are going to jump into that after this one, after I do that, because I just want to start putting some of that shape and kind of just going over it. And I will give you a technique that I use when I'm doing my personal work, like my side, my stuff, not for any company or anything like that, which I think will help. So it's going to get you there faster, I guess. So I'm going to move this around, and the thing about moving this is that, do I want that? Things I don't want to go too long, and I know it has to be extended a little bit more, but I might need to move a few things around, which I'm not a fan of. Anywho, so I'm going to get to the curve again, and we're going to start putting those curves around just very, very lightly, just very, very light. Oh, they're there. And they're very thin, so make sure you get them a little bit too thin. That's perfect. I think that's good. Yes. So from here, if the curve is still active and you're going to be able to move it, if you want to just set it in there, you have to click anywhere else in your model, and then it will get rid of that curve and then just set it in there. If not, it's still active and you can just move it around or continue it if you need it to. So from here, just going to put some areas of interest that I see in my model right now. It's okay if it kind of just goes in there. I can move it later. I just want to make sure that it's in the spot that I want. That's a little bit too... Or as close as I can. It doesn't need to be perfect, like I always say. And then we got one... Oh. Yep. Sorry about that. I click my button in here in the pen always. So from here, kind of just getting into that in the front and Let's go into that. And that's fine if it kind of moves in here. And then kind of just soften that. There you go. And I'm just going to leave it there for now. So I'm going to do a little bit of a bigger one. Oh, actually, I like that. It might be a little bit too thick. So let me just slightly, yeah, sure. And I'm just placing them random, like not randomly, but like not caring about them too much. I just want to make sure they're in the spot that I want them, and then I can just adjust them later. So from here, we have one kind of going in the middle and back. And I'm going to do that one. So I'm going to select that one and then just get the overall. I'm actually going to select this one right here. And that's fine. A little bit too thin. And then I'm just going to move them around a little bit out of there. And then there you go. So I just want to leave it in there. Just have fun there, you know. Hey, we're getting into that surface. And then let's jump into getting a little bit more of that detail. EMT, and I'm just gonna move this around. And this is still blocking out your shapes. So that's what I'm saying, like it takes time to do things that have a lot of detail. So this is just blocking out shapes, making sure I have everything in there to that start getting into that detail. And he has like a little Adam's apple in here that I just noticed. I'm like, oh, I want that. That's like, make sure you don't Dynamesh it together. You see how I kind of just Dynameshed it accidentally? Yeah, be aware of that. Easy fix on that. I'm going to go and let me see. We can polygroup this, so if by accident you're like, oh no, I have this, I would just Z-bag. Make sure you Z-bag. We can polygroup all of them to their own color. And then I'm going to go select lasso. I'm going to select the biggest piece. I'm not going to be like selecting these little tiny pieces now, right? Let's just select the biggest piece, which is going to be this guy. Everything looks good. Now I'm going to go to geometry. Actually, no, not geometry, subtool. There you go. And then we're going to go split hidden. That way the big part is split from the little tiny parts and you don't accidentally Dynamesh it. We were using it because the curve tool needs a surface area to kind of just be applied to. If not, it just doesn't work, or it just like ends up in like space. So that's why I was using that base for that. When let's say that we're going to jump a little bit ahead, we're going to do more specific detail, and I'm going to do that in my phase, actually. I like that. We can also do this area here. Yeah, you know what? Yes, I like this. So let's do this right here. So this, very, very blocked out, right? Does not look anything like that. So let's say that we're going to do some detail into this. I noticed that we're missing a curve tube in there for that shape. So first thing I'm going to do is I am going to just focus on this. Oh, and we have something in here that I'm not sure what that is. Oh, it's the inside. Yeah, we don't need this. Let me get rid of this really quick. I think that's the inside of something in there. So geometry, modify topology, delete hidden. Cool. So I like to clean up while I go. So you'll see that a lot. I just clean everything up. So from here, sure. And then we kind of just start going around a little bit more. No, I don't want to adjust that size. If I adjust this size versus the blue, so you see the blue, if this is for moving. So if you adjust this size while it's for moving the curve. If you adjust the size here with the red brush, it will adjust the actual size, not just moving. Just be aware of that. I adjusted both, and then it's just gonna make it larger. Gosh, there you go. Sure, that works for now. we're gonna do BMT and we're just gonna push it around. And then this is just for me not to have to actually sculpt it, just to have it there, Dynamesh it, and then it will kind of just get started at least a little bit more on that shape. I would like to have that there. Kind of blend in nicely into that collarbone area. Yes. There you go. That's cool. I like that. So from here, I'm actually going to Dynamesh these pieces together because we are showing a little bit of that in there. Before I do that, I'm going to use BPI, which is the pinch tool. When I say letters like this, it's just not random letters, I promise you. I am pressing B on my keyboard and it's popping out my menu. And then P is the first letter of what I want to do. So if I want to move, it's going to be M, right? If I want to pinch, it's P. So this is going to be you kind of just going through the menu brushes and kind of just learning those letters and seeing which ones are your best or your favorite ones. But I love the pinch tool very sparingly. You can use it with a mouse because you don't have that nice pen pressure. It's the best thing. So if you use it with a mouse, it's probably going to be like that. You don't want to break it. With the pen pressure, you actually can tap it and it will slightly do whatever you want to do. So be aware that the pinch tool is very, very just use it sparingly. So from here, I'm just going to slightly pinch this area here because I want it a little bit closer together. I don't know why. I just want it closer together. So from here, there you go, and we start seeing that shape. So we're going to Dynamesh this, and it's not on this. So we're going to go, yep, it's right here. I'm going to go a little bit higher on that detail. Don't worry about this inside. We're not going to... Actually, are we going to use that inside? Yes, we are actually. So that's happening because it's too thin in that area. So when you use Dynamesh, if it's too thin, it's going to start creating holes. That is very, very annoying. So fix for that, going to brush. I'm going to push this to the side a little bit. Auto masking, back face masking on. And then you're just going to add a little bit more thickness. You can sculpt in the front and in the back. I like to just do a little bit of inflation in both sides. And then I try again and Dynamesh. So you see how wherever we had that hole, we don't have it. We still have it here because we didn't kind of just do anything there. So I'm just going to inflate that. I keep hitting that. There you go. Re-Dynamesh. There you go. Now we don't have those weird holes in there. And we actually have thickness for the space of the detail we're going to have. So from here, I am going to slightly extend this because I want that to be like almost like, yeah, like, you know, like, huh. So from here, slightly extending that. And now this is my process. I have two processes. If I'm doing my own artwork for funsies, for practice, just to keep me sane, right? What I do is I come over here into ZBrush. It's under geometry. And I'm going to shift F so you can see this. And I'm going to actually duplicate it also. So you can see the difference between both. And I'm going to apply this to everything. I tend to do it while I sculpt those areas. So let's say that I'm doing the head. Then I'm going to just do it to that specific area while I sculpt it to have detail. Then I jump to the shoulders and I'm going to do it in the shoulders. Just by while I'm doing it right at the moment. I don't tend to just do everything and then just... sometimes it doesn't work out. So, first of all, let's make sure we save. Nobody reminded me of that. Damn. I was going to say, make sure you guys remind me to save. So I'm just going to save this. Let's go. And if you're doing work right now, make sure you save. I'm going to do it on 3. ZBrush tends to crash. Your computer could crash, you know. So just make sure you're saving constantly. So from here, what we're going to do is we're going to go back again to geometry. We're going to ZBrush. Oh, no. There you go. Menu. There you go. Sorry. All my menus are popping up today. I don't know what's going on with this. So I'm going to duplicate it first, and we're going to have original. I always, in my mind, original always at the top. original always at the top. So if I duplicate certain things, I know always in that list, the original is going to be on the top. For some reason, that's like very like my brain is like, yeah, I know. If something gets deleted, original is always at the top. So from here, I'm gonna go ZBrush geometry ZBrusher. I cannot tell you any specific number here. To be honest, it depends on what you're sculpting. Like you could be sculpting something different than me. The number might not be the most helpful thing for you. So I would say always test it whenever you're going to go through your sculpt. What number is the best for you? And this is what I do. So what I do is I Shift F, look at how we have this like interesting, very interesting topology. Before I do that though, you see how this is very thin here? We're not using it for nothing. I'm just gonna cut that out. We don't need that. It might give you weird issues later on. So I'm just kind of cut it out. I'm gonna go and hide it. Control Shift. And I'm just gonna delete it. Modify topology, delete hidden. Now I'm gonna close this hole before I do that. And then kind of just soften it a little bit. It's just gonna sparse out those polygons so you don't have weird peaks on it. But we're gonna see how it comes out. So from here, I'm gonna go ZBrush. So ZBrush, what technically does, it kind of just tries its best to keep your shapes while cleaning the topology. So it's kind of like a retopology tool, a quick, easy, sometimes dirty retopology tool. So from here, what you do is you're gonna ZBrush it. I'm just gonna click in there. See how target polygon says 5. So I believe this is by percentage. So of how much, let me see if I can. So if we have that, I'm not a mathematic person. I, like many artists, I definitely understand that we're not the best at math. So I just go by flow and do I like it? So I just do hit a number. I'm like, where did it go? There you go. Does 5 work for me? Let's find out. When I hit that button, does that look good? Yeah. Remember, that we're not going to leave it at this point here. I'll show you in a bit. So we're just going to be, oh, this looks good. This looks like a good start. Does it look like a good start for your model? Sure. I could go a little bit lower though. So I'm going to go and take this right here and kind of just go lower on percentage. You're going to see the change. And I'm going to go the lowest so you guys can compare. Look at how cleaner that looks. So this is the ZBrush retopology tool. I like it. It's a love-hate relationship for me just because when I'm doing quick things, sure, I'm going to go for it. When I'm actually doing pipeline work for my characters, if I'm doing them for a game, I don't use this too much because I retopologize it myself. I'm like, I put it in ZBrush, I get to the point before we ZBrush, then I export that mesh into Maya, and then I retopologize there. I also use you can use many other software that do retopology. I use Topogon, I love Topogon. There's so many out there, so you can just research those. But that's what I would do. I would just leave it at that point and then move it along to another program where I can retopologize it. And then I would bring it back and then give the detail. But if you're doing this really quick for funsies like I am today, we can just ZBrush it really quick. The problem with ZBrushing and then just utilizing that, sometimes you get a lot of looping, a lot of like extra cleaning, and I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of just doing extra work for no reason. So I try to be very efficient and as fast as I can on that. So I ZBrush it. But if we compare this to the Dynamesh one, look at that. I'm going to go up to here. So look at this versus this. Way cleaner, right? So that's what we want. So hopefully that question before about retopology tip, this could be something that you might want to look into. But like I always say, automizing things is great when you're running out of time, where you're, practicing. But always try to make sure you know how to do it yourself. How can I retopologize this? How do I even start, right? So that's when you're like, let me put it into Maya, Blender, whatever you're using, Topogon, whatever you do. and then just do it over there. Do it manually, suffer, you know, sweat and tears, everything, and then do it automatic if you need to. So from here, we're not going to use this one anymore, to be honest. So bye-bye to that one. And then do that. So from here, obviously it's looking very, very low poly. So now we're going to be doing geometry divide right here. Those are subdivision levels. This is what's going to give you the resolution and polygons on your mesh. So you can just keep going, divide. It's going to add more subdivisions. Your first subdivision is going to be your retopologized mesh. So you had a nice clean retopology from Maya. You can just bring it here, add subdivision levels, and then start adding detail to it. You can go up and down on this. Pressing D goes up, and pressing Shift D goes down. Those are the hotkeys for that. I utilize it a lot, so I'm like, yes, I love those hotkeys there. So from here, this is where I think that turned off my, let me see really quick. Preferences, edit. I turned it off. That's interesting. So from here, that's where we have a clean mesh that we can see that we can add more resolution and more detail to. So from here, what I would probably do is I would then, let's choose a nice, we can do a couple of things, to be honest. We can do booleans, we can do many things. And I would probably do a boolean before we do the ZBrush, because I don't believe booleans work with subdivisions. A lot of the tools in ZBrush don't work with subdivision levels, so you might have to try, you know, they might be adjusting that here and there, but you might need to try it for yourself. So anything that's like really, really moving your mesh, and I actually would like to have that like slightly going very tall in the back, forward, very low. So I'm gonna actually adjust that again, and kind of just have it a little bit more like that. It doesn't need to be exactly the same, but that's something I would like to see on it. I love that. Almost like shoulder pads or something. I love that. So from here, we can start adding the details. So we can do a lot of, hey, maybe, and it kind of went a little bit too soft on the tube that I had there. So that's funsies. So if you ever, so let's say for, I think I deleted it. Okay. So let's say for example that, and I don't like this, that you lose some kind of detail from the original. Don't be like me and delete it. Always keep it at the top, because you can always project that information from one mesh to the other. But right now I'm just choosing a different alpha brush, because I'm like, I don't want to use, that one's a little bit too thin for what I want to do in this area. So you see how this one gives me a little bit more of a wide crevice, which is what I'm looking for. I'm looking to deepen that area there to then start adding that detail there. And I'm just going to go and deepen that. I hope that topology tip or tool works or helps you on that question, by the way. So from here, I'm going to just focus on that and kind of just give it a little bit more deepness in here. I feel like it's too, like, I don't know, flat. Sorry, my tablet is getting a little old, and I don't want to let it go. I love it. But sometimes it throws me away, and I'm just like, what is going on? And I think it's my pen, but no, it's a tablet, but it's just so nice. There you go. So I'm getting that deepness in there, and then we can just start doing, and what I want to do is I want to do flat and then kind of just outwards and inwards again. So kind of like a nice, odd, round shape in the center there. And I'm going to be able to do that with, I think, like Inflate. Yeah, there you go. Where it's like deep in here and then kind of just round in here. That's what I want to do. And because I feel like this, oh, there you go. Yeah, this is what I want to have in there. So that's looking good for now. We have some detail in there that we can just still adjust it and kind of just go a little bit more deep in certain areas. I might need to be honest, I don't want to like sculpt it. I might just do another curve later on, but yeah, that's what I would do. I would just go piece by piece, kind of just see your mesh it, clean it up. So that's what we're gonna be doing today. So from here, this is a big piece and it's very dense right now. And it doesn't need to be honest. It's very simple. It's very round, and that's it. It doesn't need to be that extreme of topology. So like I said, I always duplicate it just in case anything breaks. In case anything breaks, I always have the original at the top. So from here, I'm going to go there, and we're going to be going to serial mesh a couple areas at subdivision levels, and then start adding some of that detail. I want to do a little bit of overall noise to kind of break up the super soft surface on the body. So we're going to be doing that too. So I'm going to go and serial mesh. Again, we're just going to put a number there. Originally it's 5. Let's see how 5 does. Well, that thinks I'm just going to drink water. Sometimes I'm like, well, this does this. I'm going to go drink coffee. So that's good. So there's 2 colors here because you didn't hide, Valerie. You didn't hide this one. There you go. So if you don't hide it by hitting this little eye here, it will just be overlapping each other. But if we compare top and this one, it's getting there. I always like to push it. Just do the lowest number. See how it breaks. Do you like it? Right? Because sometimes if it's too low, obviously it's not holding maybe the silhouette or the geometry or the detail that you want. So from here, yeah, I think that's good actually. I like that. Yeah. That's 1 point blah blah blah. Got it. So I'm just gonna go a little bit lower. Nah, you see how here then it goes a little bit too narrow here? You see how it's too much? Then I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna back out on that. Z back and then leave it here. From here we're gonna go divide a couple of times. I've never had more than 8 subdivision levels. I don't know about you guys that do this. I've never had more than 8, to be honest. Once you get into 8, 9 for me, it's like 50 million plus. My computer, it's like, it's kind of struggling, right? So I try to avoid that. I keep it under 8. I've never had to be past 8. But look at, we still have some of the weird surface detail there, which is what I wanted to keep. That's perfect. Because I didn't want to lose it too much. And of course, that's a primary shape, but I still didn't want to lose it with the serial meshing. Because you got to find that nice sweet spot with it. Because if you go too low, it's just, you got to start over again with the shapes. But I wanted to, oh, there you go. It's going by. Okay. I wanted to, oh, I think I know what it is. I think the thing is on. Let me see. Sorry, guys. There's a button here that I always accidentally click. But no, it's not on. Cool. So I want to make sure that that weird surface, that it's not just a perfect, like, oh, it's the perfect super soft long tube. I don't want that. I want it to have some discrepancy in the surface so it actually looks real, right? So it doesn't look super fake. So I want to have that. And sometimes in 3D, you have to push certain things for it to look correctly. You might think like, oh, technically this is great. This is technically good. But artistically, it's not reading. It's not looking. It's not feeling. And I love when it's like feels like it. That's when you're in the right spot. So from here, I'm just going to slightly soften that. Smooth it out. Not too much. Now that shape is clean. I don't need to do a lot of like detail on this. So that shape is just there. That's it. We're done with that one. So next one, I'm gonna do, actually, do I want these two together? That's a good question. Huh. Because I was like, maybe I want the face to be together with the whole thing together. So I'm thinking now, maybe I do want it. So let's say, for example, you're like, oh no, I already ZBrush this, and I want I already have subdivision levels, which I see a lot happening. Once you have subdivision levels, it's a little bit tricky to kind of just merge something into it, like attach it. So just make sure everything that you want to attach, you attach it first, because if not, it's just gonna be kind of going back out. So we're gonna have to go a little bit back again because I want this to be together with the head. Do I want it? Do I want it? I'm thinking about it. I'm like, maybe if I have something. Yeah, you know what? Let's try it out without it. Let's try it out without it. So now we're gonna do the flat areas of this kind of just going together, and then we're gonna apply some of that nice detail to it. So really easy. We're gonna go B, and then we're gonna go a curve, and I love curve snap. This one's really good too. The flat. Might do these two. Any of these are good. Let's do strap. Actually, no, flat. Let's do flat because I don't think I need that much thickness. From here, we're going to select my head, and first, let me see what we have here. Oh, so it's just a plane. Okay, I might not want that actually for now. Yeah, I want a little bit of thickness for it. Let's do curve. This is the life of a character artist. How can I do this? How can I do this better? So if you're thinking that way, that's good. So from here, I'm just gonna see this right here. Where did my other? Maybe it's hidden. Did I hide it? There's something missing in here. Oh, there you go. Cool. I see what's going on. So from here, what I want to do is make sure that everything kind of just flows together in that area. I do have a smaller spot here because I don't want to elongate it too much in the front. So that's just me and my kind of like, I don't want to have it too long there. But I'm going to adjust this here. Maybe adjust this here to kind of get that longness without actually having to do the whole thing. Which I can do really quick, and I'm going to show you guys because it's really nice. We're going to go to Z plugin menu. We're going to go to transpose tool, and we're going to hit T-pose mesh. And I always like to save this before, but so from here, then I can, technically it just takes all your subtools and turns them into one mesh. So you can pose. This is really good for posing and things like that. But now I can move it without having to just go zub tool by zub tool. I use this a lot for, just doing overall posing of my model. If I don't want the hands to be like this right now, I would do that, and then just I can move the hands and my nails if I have them as a separate subtool, which I do. So I always do. Anything that's teeth, nails, eyes. What else? Yeah, anything, horns, some horns. Create them separate. It's going to be the easiest way to kind of adjust them if you have to. So from here, what I would do is then I would push the whole thing together by just masking it. And then you see how it moves the whole face. I love that. And then we can just adjust it a little bit longer. Even though I don't want to go too long, so I gotta like, there you go. Let me see if I like that. Boop, boop. Yeah, I like that. That's not bad. There you go. Because then obviously when we go to post this a little bit later, I want to post it looking down a little bit more. That's why when I'm extending this, it's like, let me see how this looks for now. If not, I'm just going to pose it later, extending the phase, kind of just hunching it more because it's hunched now, but it's not like super hunched like in the concept that I want. So that's why I'm like, okay, I'm looking for a medium spot on this right now, not too much. Then obviously we got to adjust the top because if not, it's going to have a little weird dip in there, but it still has that dip. So be aware that it's not perfectly round. It's very like round and then kind of goes down and round again. So I'm trying to also capture that essence. So from here, I am going to then go back because I just moved whatever I need to, right? Z plugin, and I'm gonna hit T post T, which is gonna just pull all my meshes back into like separate. Love that. I'm gonna save this before I continue. I always like anything, anywhere at any point that you're doing something a little bit more extreme than just sculpting, I save it. So for example, if we're gonna serial mesh, I save before serial meshing. If I'm gonna do this, I save before it. Because sometimes it depends if you have so many polygons, ZBrush is just being ZBrush that day. It might crash, you didn't save, that's lost. So try to avoid losing, you know, your progress like that. If you're gonna do something big, I would say save every like 20 minutes or 30 overall. But if you're gonna do something big, save before it. Always, always, always. So from here, I'm gonna do the same thing we did on the head, the same thing we did on the shoulders. I am going to just zero mesh everything, and then I'm gonna start adding that. Is there any questions so far with topology? Zero meshing doesn't automatically. There is some ways that you can adjust it with adding colors and things like that. I don't tend to work on that too much because I just want it clean. I want space clean. I just want to have it not so dense with topology. So I don't tend to go specific into what colors. There's a way that you can put, like, let's say you put a blue and that blue is a little bit more or less topology in that spot. If you put a red, it's more topology in a spot. So when you serial mesh, it will have those different spot and areas depending on that color you apply to have certain amount of geometry in that spot. You can definitely do that. I don't tend to do that. You guys can research that. It's just, for me, it's not useful if I'm just gonna add more topology and then just keep it quick. But if you're going to specifics, you can definitely go and look that up and see how it works for you in your pipeline. So from here, we're gonna go again. Geometry. That's literally the process. Geometry. Serial mesher. Too high still. You see, we don't need that. Way to tell if this breaks down, it's too low. If it still hold while the lowest number, then it's in a good spot. So 5 is still too high. See how we start losing some. I'm gonna get close in here. So this is where we were at before, and then we keep doing that. Still good. I'm gonna go a little bit lower and see if that works. Oh yeah, still good. Okay. Now this is too low for me because I start losing this shape here that I don't want to redo. So that might be a little bit too low, but we can still go way, way lower on this. But you know, whatever, depending on how much time you have, because maybe I'm like, okay, cool, then done. Does that make sense? If you lose too much silhouette, then it's too low. So from here, Shift F again. It's looking good. It didn't lose a lot of geometry. We might need to adjust some areas in here because I see that masseter area, it's a little longer there. So I might need to cut in here and then kind of just get that shape a little bit more. But that's what we have. That's what we have this for here, because I wanted to make sure that, okay, we have this connected here. Where are we going? Where is everything? Right? So at least have a path to kind of go through. So from here, yeah, I like that. I might need to go a little bit, because if this was his zygomatic, then I would have to go a little bit up a little bit there. There you go. I like that. I wanted to go a little bit inwards, so I'm not doing it too out. That's why I'm like, okay. VDS. There you go. So from here, I'm just gonna add. If you need to do any movements of primary, this is where you want to do it before you start adding subdivisions. If you need to do anything extreme, right? Sometimes if you add subdivisions and you do the extreme movement later, you might get some weird topology stretching too much. So this would be a good spot to just keep adjusting if you need it to at that point. And I want this area here to go in slightly. I don't know. I know it doesn't show too much on the reference, but I'm like, I want that to be slightly like bony, extremely here, and then nothing here. Love that. I think if I looked at that there, I would think it's pretty neat. So I'm just gonna soften that. From here, again, I'm just gonna geometry, divide, divide, divide. Of course, now it's too soft, right? So we're gonna have to then come back with the detail. So I'm gonna go back to getting close to this. This is not the best resolution for the detail, so I would probably have a separate detail. I don't know, maybe I want to have some wrinkles, you know, some kind of that surface, like, sorry, line kind of just going back, maybe some fiber like detail, and see if that works. So from here, I am going to go back into my lips because my lips are looking like a little too soft right now. Like, I don't know if I like that. So I'm gonna go and BIN, which is the inflate brush, and I'm gonna go in on this, way in. I want it to be a little bit deeper, but I don't want to break the geometry, so be aware that it may happen. Just don't break it too much. You see how it's breaking there? Look at that. Soften it, leave it. So from here, I'm going to take BDS, which is the Damien standard brush right here. And I'm going to start adding some kind of like lip to it. You see how it's very thin? It's very, very thin. So I think that from this softness to that, it's a little bit sharper, like that. So from here, there's a lot of movement and kind of just wrinkly area here. This is a little bit too low. I'm in subdivision 3, but the way that I want to break the surface with that tertiary detail, the way that I do it personally, or a little tip I would suggest, is work between mid and high. Because if you're trying to do tertiary detail, let's say like wrinkles in the eyes, you know the bags right here under your eyes? If you're doing an older person, you don't want to just be in tertiary detail or in the highest subdivision levels and be like, I want to add wrinkles, and then just like choo, 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 choo. The reason behind that is just because it looks kind of like fake. There's no like, how do I say that? There's a word, like there's no mixing or smoothing between those layers. It's just like, oh, just a wrinkle. But if you do it like in a subdivision that's a mid, that you can add some detail into it. Let's say if you're doing, like I said, the bags under your eyes and they're like really baggy and round, then you can just do the roundness first, have that volume, and then you can add the detail, the little slightly wrinkles, and that will just blend great. But if you just start adding wrinkles, like wrinkles, it's not gonna look the best. So I found out myself that it's really nice to just have that surface, like almost secondary detail in there. And then when I go and I subdivide till maybe 7, and then I do a finer, let's say, let me see which one I like. It could be 12. Sorry, sometimes I'm like, oh, I like 12. Let's test 12. So if I have this, I'm going to smooth it out a little bit. No, I don't like 12 too much. 37 it is. There you go. And then I add that tertiary detail. Look at how nice this looks, instead of me just being like, look at the difference between this and then this, right? Even if you soften this at the bottom, it still doesn't look as natural as this if you just like start adding your detail. So that's I feel like that's a good tip. Like just work between, maybe it could be 4 and 7 or 5 and 8. So just work between those to get that tertiary detail. Even if you're doing tertiary detail, just that's really, really nice. Because sometimes I see students skipping secondary details and then just going to tertiary, but there's no support there for that. And it just looks kind of fake and not real and just like flat most of the time. So question. Do you hide all the duplicates you make unless you need to use them? That's a good question. Yes, I do. I hide them because, sorry, this is like, so I hide them because I don't want them to be competing with each other. Like, you see how if they're on top of each other, you see like different colors and they're like weird. If you move one, you're like, wait, I'm moving this, but then it's not moving. It might be the other one. So yes, I hide them and I put them at the top. So what I do is if I had two duplicates like these two, I don't need it anymore. I put it at the top. Or I delete it. Of course, if you don't need them, delete them. But let's say, for example, that I do something to this head and I'm like, oh no, maybe I didn't save a previous, because I see students happen this a lot. Maybe I didn't save a previous file. Oh no. And I only have this type of head and I don't want to go back to the other one. If you save like me, you have like so many saves. I have like at the end of the month or each project, you don't want to know how many saves I have. I have so many. Don't be like me that much. Be like, save, but not so many. But at least I know, hey, my previous save has this type of head that I actually want to go back to that. And you can always append that into the scene and then call it a day. You don't have to recreate it. So I try to always kind of like save myself with that extra work because of that. I was working in a game one time and I was doing fur, and then the fur was like great. The client loved it. I was like, yes, this is perfect. And they're like, oh, you only have to change one thing. And I'm like, great. And then ZBrush was like, nope, crashed. And then when I opened it, it had like some weird thing exploding going. I was like, no. I was like, ah. So guess what? I had a previous save, and that saved me because I at least had a point where I was like, oh, I know I saved that, and I don't have to redo the whole fur again, right? That they already liked, right? So I was like, cool, that saves me. If the file just gets corrupted or something happens, you can always go back. I save in increments, 30 minutes, 20. As you can put a timer on the side. You can be Alexa, let me know about this. So just always save yourself, if that makes sense, and your time, because you don't want to redo things sometimes, but you might have to. So next question, how much time would you project or prefer to spend on a character? Granted, of course, the variable of the level of creativity involved. Yeah, definitely. It depends on what I'm doing. It's difficult to say. It depends. I would say it depends on what I'm doing, because I've done like you guys saw different types of characters. They're mostly stylized because I love stylized. I've done realistic definitely. I feel like realistic takes a little bit more time for me, just because I'm like, I just want to get every tiny detail. Stylized also takes time. It's not saying stylized doesn't take time. It does also take a lot of time, but my brain understands it a little bit faster and better, and I just have more fun with it for some reason. So when I do characters that I'm mostly doing stylized, it's difficult to say. I would say if it's a passion project, however much time I need to finish it, or however much time I need for me to just do what I need to do for that specific project. So let's say, for example, if I'm practicing hair, then I'm like, sure, I'm just gonna focus on the hair and then just give it time for that. If I'm practicing hands, just do the hands and then move on from that. So it depends on the project. It depends on a lot of things, I would say. But I would say give yourself a time frame. Maybe a character a month, or a character a week, because you get full sale, you're gonna be, it's gonna be really fast paced, right? So it's good that you're in that mindset, because you're like, oh, I need to do this really fast. I need to just pop out characters as fast as I can, because that's gonna help you in the industry when you go there, because that's what you need to do. But if you're doing it as a passion project, then I would say still give yourself a time frame. Because don't be like me sometimes, and I'm like, Valerie, I know. Valerie, you're taking a month or two on this, and then you're just barely touching it, So when that happens with me, I'm like, I know I might gotten to the part of that project where I'm like done with it. But always be like, give yourself a month, a week, a time frame so you can finish it. For me, it depends, personally. So, does having too many autosave files cause issues with your computer? That's 100%. You will run out of storage really quick. That's why I was like, don't be like me and have like 50 saves. Maybe be a little bit more mindful of what you're saving, if that makes sense. So I know that my first file is my blockout. My second file is going to be blockout 2. My third file, blockout 3. You see? So I'm a little bit more mindful when I save. I'm like, I have this, and that. Not just randomly saving. Not like file 1 is going to be blockout, and then file 2, you're almost finished. Does that make sense? So it's kind of being mindful of the saves that you're doing. Sometimes I just go crazy and I save, but I try myself to be like, no, Valerie, at least save 10 files per project. And then I divide within those 10 files what I'm saving. Like I said, block out, maybe 1, maybe 5 is my secondary shapes, and maybe 10 is my tertiary. Does that make sense? So hopefully that helps. It does. You will run out of storage, and OneDrive will be a problem and things like that. So just be mindful of that, of what you save. So sorry, sometimes I blabble and I'm like, let's sculpt. So from here, I'm just gonna start adding what I see, a little bit more deepness in the cheeks because I feel like it's too round. And I want it to be a little sharper too. I want to be able to cut something with that, even though it doesn't show that much, but I want it that way. So from here, I'm gonna start then adding a little bit more of that structure to my, let me make sure that this is, there you go. And I actually like this. I'm gonna keep that one there, and I might push it a little bit to the side. I'm gonna use a mask to kind of just create that overlapping effect. I don't want it to be too soft in there. I want it to actually look like it's, there's something going on. I think one of my, yep, it's definitely, sorry, I think something's, there you go, sticky on my pen. So from here, I'm just gonna push this up a little bit to kind of create a crease there, not too intense. And then from here, I'm just gonna continue my lip. And I want it to be sharp because it's showing to be sharp, to be honest. It's not too soft. And like I said, this might not be the clearest for the head. So guess what? We have other ones, right? We have other references here. I love this one. To be honest, might need to change the teeth because I love these teeth, but I also love the just super sharp teeth. So it's a conundrum with me. So from here, I'm gonna go and kind of just get that edge. But I just wanted to make sure that I show you guys the process of doing detail, in the sense of just topology. Topology is very important. Just because you don't want to have a lot of topology and then your Maya's crashing, your ZBrush crashing, right? So you want to get into a point where you can still sculpt within ZBrush and not have a lot of topology. And I feel like this is a good spot. Overall total points, I got 10 million in this whole piece. Of course, it's going to go down, or should go at least down a little bit more when I start serial meshing this, which I will do right now, to be honest. Yeah, let's do that one right now, because I want to add the noise detail a little bit overall, not too specific, in the body, so you guys can see how I do it. It's very easy and quick, but it's just, it breaks the body a little bit more, so it's not just super soft and gleamy. We can also start adding the veins, which I see a lot here. I love that. So let's go for that one. For here, I'm going to geometry, serial mesher. Check that. Serial mesher on that. Interesting. What's going on? Let me see. So, serial meshing error encountered. Remeshing aborted. That's very interesting. But it happens. When that happens, I just save. I'm like, I'm just gonna save this for now instead of, you know, if it crashes. I tend to go check a couple things. If I get an error that it doesn't want to see your mesh, I'm gonna turn off symmetry. I'm gonna hit on X, and I'm gonna try and see if it does it. There you go. Unless you need it for any reason, not necessary. This is symmetrical. If it wasn't symmetrical, I believe it kind of just tries to work with the symmetry. But you can always check symmetry. We can always go here. You're gonna hit mirror and weld. If anything moves, which it did, I think it really minuscule move right here, then it wasn't symmetrical. But this will definitely give you symmetry if you just hit it there. So from here, I'm gonna do that again. Error encountered. Cool. I'm gonna turn that on, and then let me see. Check mesh. Yeah, that's fine. Fix mesh. Cool. This is mesh integrity really quick. It kind of just checks if your mesh is having any weird issues. I always hit it. I'm like, oh, let's fix it automatic. It's the only thing automatic fix that I hit ever in my entire career, and see if it works. Yeah, it did work. Something was weird with the topology, so I just kind of fixed it really quick. So from here, nice and cleaner, not so dense like this one. And that's what we want, right? That's what we want. So from here, if you're not liking a lot of, I'm just gonna push this down because we don't need this yet. That's perfect. It was giving me that weird going into a point kind of thing. I don't like that too much. So from here, divide geometry, 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 and now we can start adding more of the detail. Again, because I didn't have a lot of tertiary detail before this, because Dynamesh doesn't hold it too much, I didn't lose too much. It kept the overall feel of the shoulders and everything, which is perfect, and it also softened some areas that were a little bit too harsh. So I love that process. So from here, we're gonna go to surface. I keep hitting that. And then we're going to just create an overall noise, and you're gonna see what that means. And I'm just gonna go really quick close to this so you guys can see. So it's very soft here. I actually like that. But let's see how adding a noise kind of works out. So I'm gonna go, and it's gonna give you this menu. This menu sometimes is a little fidgety, so be aware of that. But if we get really, really close, and I'm probably gonna have to add the scale. Obviously, we don't want that intense, right? But you can just adjust any of these here, any of these, have fun with it. And this one's the primary one. This is gonna give you the scale of whatever noise you have connected. This noise right here, it's just the original noise that comes with it. You can always plug any noise, and they have a library here too, so you can always click on that, do whatever noise. Let me see if yep, they have a whole library here of noises that you can just bricks, you know, scales, spirals, so you can play with that and kind of just add it to that surface as an overall. If there's specific areas that you don't want it to be affected, you can always mask it. So let's do a weird noise tattoo right here for this guy. Noise. And then you'll see that anything that's masked will not be affected. So let me scale it again so you can see it better. There you go. So that is really nice. I don't tend to go too dense, but I do want to say what you see here, it's not exactly the same what you're going to see in your surface. So just be aware of that. You might need to push it a little bit more before you hit that button. So I'm just going to go really, really a little bit more intense on it. And I'm going to hit OK. And it's just going to apply it overall. Love it. It's breaking the surface. It's breaking the lights. You guys, I'm going to go a little bit closer so you can see it. There you go. Perfect. So this right now, just a preview. Make sure you go and apply to mesh. And now you see how it's still not as super hard. Also, let me check something before we do that. Did I add subdivisions? That is the question. Geometry. Oh, I did. You can actually let's do like 2 more subdivision levels so you actually hold that resolution and that detail. And then let's go back to surface because I feel like 4 was too low. Apply to mesh. There you go. That's better. So we have an overall detail of it, which is giving it really, really, really nice shape onto that. And I would probably do that around neck, mouth area. Definitely not on the top. This is a very soft, smooth, I would say, surface. So I wouldn't do it on the top. But anything that's fleshy, that's where I would probably go ahead and kind of do that, even on this one. And just because I want an overall breakup, it doesn't need to be too harsh. It doesn't need to be, you know, something just overall to break up that surface, to give it a little bit more realism if you're going for that. And then have fun with that. I'm just going to apply to mesh. You see how this one's not as harsh into that as this is? Yeah, but it's just breaking up that surface, giving you a little bit more movement even on that lighting. So from here, that's what I would do with also this one. But this one, I want it a little bit. If it goes like that where you can't find it, there's buttons here at the top where you can just, you know, frame it, recenter it, and things like that. It's just a different menu, this one. So be aware that's a thing. Is there any questions so far? Any more before we start wrapping this up? Like I said, a lot of detail on this. I'm going to be spending a lot of more time after this because, like I said, I just love when I get into detail. I'm just like, oh, I just want to go every detail, every wrinkle. But at least an overall look and feel, and at least I'm like imagining this again in my desk. I'm like, oh, how would I look at this? Will I like it? Will it, like, what purpose and things like that? That's what I'm thinking when I'm adding that. I don't think I have to go too much into too extreme detail just because I'm going to be 3D printing it. There's some areas that I don't need to go super tiny because they're not probably going to pop out, right? But let's start doing some areas in the back and then finish. Where is the... I like that. Let me see. There was a one. Oh, this one. I love this one right here. So if we're doing something like this area here, I'm going to go and... Ooh, you see how this looks a little odd here? This is something I would definitely apologize. Serial mesh, because that's a weird geometry going on there. Might not act as I want to. You see? It's like a star thing going on there. So if you have areas of your model that's happening, you want to fix that because it's not going to be useful if you want it to sculpt on it. So let's go geometry. And I'm going to delete my subdivisions by just going all the way to 1, deleting higher, so it will delete all of them. And then from here, I would probably do a serial mesh on this again because I already have subdivisions on this, which is weird. I don't get to do subdivisions that fast, but serial mesh. I don't want it to go that high either. Sometimes if you go high on this, it's gonna definitely add more geometry trying to hold that shape. So be aware that happens. That's not too bad. But that's breaking out. So that's good. Divide, divide, divide. And then when we go back to this, because I want to go inwards a little bit. Inwards, Valerie. There you go. You see how it actually doesn't have that weirdness now. And then we can really quickly add that detail of... I don't need it to be too deep because I'm probably going to end up painting it and kind of giving it a nice darker shade. But at least it gets the detail that I want it to. And I'm going to go and kind of just have a slight edge, not too... And I'm using Trim Dynamic. It's another nice brush in here. It gives you that nice edge. And I could have also... that's fine. I don't want it to be perfect either, so I'm just gonna slightly have that nice surface. Like, you see this discrepancy there? Like, ooh. You can also cut it, but I like that. I like seeing that almost stylized feel to it. That's why I use polish a lot, because it kind of gives me that. But it reads well from this view, which is where I'm going to be seeing it. That's it. I don't need to go too much into that. And then on this one, same thing. You can definitely duplicate it. There's a... I think I moved some things, but if you originally do this one and then you only have one, you can duplicate it, and that's it. But I believe I moved some things that I wanted on the bottom one, so we're going to have to do that again. But duplication, best friend. So I'm going to go a little deeper, and maybe this one is not going to be exactly the same because I want it to be like a little bit smaller. I want the tube to be thicker and kind of just stretched out, but then the hole, I want it to be very, very... There you go. There you go. And then that's it. It reads from where I want it to, and that's the goal. And then I would probably go around and do the same thing with the noise, kind of just break that surface. Maybe start adding some of these, which is going to be really, really... Probably I would do a customized... Let me see. If I didn't do really quick, I would probably do... Before we start heading out... And then, of course, I will definitely finish this a little bit more further. You guys will see the video on the Full Sail page from the beginning to the end and how I'm going to present it. Because I'm still thinking about, do I want to go creepy? Do I want to go more colorful on this? You know, what's the deal? So it's going to be a surprise on how it's going to be like presented. Surprise for you and for me because I still haven't thought about it. But... that's part of the process, so it's great. At the end, whenever I get that feeling of, oh, how is this looking? Is this going to be more colorful? Is this, you know, that's when I kind of decide what way I'm going to do to kind of present my work. You know, things like that. So hopefully that helps. Is there any other questions before we start heading out, guys? What I was going to do is I was going to do BDS. But yeah, if I was going to do some kind of detail like that, I would probably do this stroke, drag rectangle, and I would probably drag it. I would probably mask this area how I wanted it to. Might be like that. Let's say this is the shape that I want. And then I would probably click and drag this, and it would probably do a... I think I would have to do a customized alpha for that because I don't think I like this one too much. But I would probably do a customized alpha for that and then start clicking and dragging it like that, and then maybe going a little bit deeper. But I feel like it would be easier to just do a overall alpha for it, to be honest. I was thinking, oh, maybe that's cool, but nah, I don't want it to be too narrow, like too shallow even. So I like that. But yeah, if there's any other question, guys, I hope you guys check out the overall final. Not too much to do, to be honest, left. Just a little bit wrinkles here and there. Adding some of the design that I want. Still deciding on that, like I said. And then I am definitely going to break symmetry. Because I feel like, you see how the hands are just like super symmetrical right now? Not liking that too far. So at the end, you will see everything that I'm going to do after this. Add some asymmetry. Maybe some drool. Still thinking about that. And just maybe a little bit of color and design and lighting. Because I feel like maybe I'm going to go super creepy like we did with one of the past ones with Krampus. I think that was pretty cool. So I like that vibe. So maybe I'm going for that creepiness. But we'll see. You guys will find out. Make sure you check out the Full Sail University page and all the activities they have for Halloween because they are awesome. The crew, thank you everybody also for making sure that this happens today and all the Halloween things that they're doing this year. So make sure you guys check those out because they're great and so fun. And I am excited to see you guys dressing up on campus and all the activities online too. So you guys have a great Halloween. You know, happy Halloween, have fun, and, you know, be safe, right? Be safe. Eat lots of candy. If anything, let me know, and I'll be here to help you guys. You guys have a good day. Bye.